The first time I heard the tapping on our living room window, the search teams had already shut down their lights for the night. I was sitting alone on the couch, staring at Peyton's pink backpack we found by the porch, and trying not to think about how many hours had passed since anyone last saw her. That morning had started like any other. Warm air, clear sky, the kind of day when nothing feels dangerous. Peyton was running around the backyard with her small explorer bag bouncing behind her. Amanda was cleaning the kitchen, and I told her I'd keep an eye on our daughter while finishing a work file on my laptop. From the window, I could see Peyton skipping around the yard, making roads for her toy truck in the dry dirt. I remember looking up every few minutes, checking that she stayed inside the fence line. She always did. We'd repeated the rule so many times, don't go near the woods alone. At some point, the usual sounds of her play turned into silence. Not sudden, not alarming at first, just quiet. Amanda stepped out to call her in for a snack, and when Peyton didn't answer, something inside me twisted. We searched the whole yard, the garage, behind the shed, then the space behind the old fence where blackberry bushes grow wild. Nothing. The more we called her name, the more unreal the afternoon felt. Neighbors joined within minutes. Naomi brought her binoculars and asked if Peyton ever wandered toward the trails. I said no, but the truth was I didn't know anymore. By late afternoon, police arrived. Sergeant Blake questioned us calmly but directly. When did we last see her? Was there anyone unusual around? Had she been upset recently? His voice was steady, but I could feel the weight behind every question. Volunteers fanned out through the woods. Dogs searched the ground. Drones swept over the tree canopy. I walked with the first search group, shouting her name until my throat burned. The woods that usually felt peaceful now looked endless, full of shadows deep enough to swallow a child. Amanda stayed near the house. I kept seeing her standing with Peyton's stuffed fox pressed to her chest, staring toward the woods as if she could force time backward through sheer will. As evening settled, searchlights cut through the darkness, sweeping across branches and fallen logs. The generator hummed, radios crackled, people called to each other. Still no sign of her. Every hour that passed felt heavier than the last. Just after midnight, the search was paused until dawn. Volunteers drifted home. The police kept a patrol outside. Amanda went to the bedroom, saying she needed a moment, though I knew she was breaking apart behind that door. I couldn't sleep. I sat in the living room with only the dim porch light shining through the window. Our house felt too quiet, too still. Peyton's drawings were still on the fridge, a pair of her shoes by the door. That's when I heard it. A soft, deliberate tap on the window. Then another. I froze. At first I told myself it was a branch, maybe a pine cone tossed by the wind. But something about the rhythm, short, precise, pulled me to my feet. I stepped closer to the glass. The yard outside was dark, the porch light barely reaching the fence. For a second I saw nothing. And then two faint reflections, round, steady, hovered just above the ground. Eyes. My chest tightened. I tried to convince myself it was a stray cat or a raccoon, anything ordinary. The eyes blinked once. Then the shape moved back into the shadows. I stood there long after it disappeared, trying to steady my breathing. I didn't know yet what had been staring at me from the darkness. And I definitely didn't know it would come back. Not once, but night after night. At that moment, all I knew was this. The tapping on the window wasn't my imagination. And whatever was out there had come with purpose. By the time the sun came up, I had convinced myself the tapping I heard was nothing more than exhaustion twisting sounds into something they weren't. I didn't tell Amanda. She had enough to hold together without me adding strange noises in the night. At dawn, police and volunteers returned. Trucks lined the street, radios crackled nonstop, and search dogs barked as their handlers prepared them for another sweep. The morning air was cold enough to sting, but no one complained. Everyone just moved with the kind of quiet urgency that comes when hope is slipping. Sergeant Blake met us by the fence. His eyes were tired, the kind of tired you only see on people who've delivered bad news too many times. He briefed his team, pointed out new grids on the map, and emphasized that the first 12 hours were critical. We were already past that. Amanda stood beside me, arms wrapped around herself, barely speaking. She asked Blake if they had found anything at all, clothing, footprints, anything. He shook his head slowly. She turned away so he wouldn't see her cry. Hours passed. I followed another search group deeper into the woods than the night before. Fallen branches cracked under our boots as we fanned out. calling Peyton's name until the echoes swallowed our voices. The dogs led us along faint trails, stopping occasionally to sniff the air, but each time they lost the scent. Around midday, volunteers formed a large sweep line. We pushed through thick underbrush, over soft ground, past old hunting stands, and the remains of a rusted fence. Nothing. Only birds scattering from treetops and the distant buzz of an ATV circling toward the northern ridge. By late afternoon, the search area expanded beyond the woods. Abandoned sheds, drainage ditches, culverts under the road. Everything was checked twice. Naomi brought sandwiches for everyone, though I couldn't eat. She stayed with Amanda, keeping her from collapsing every time someone approached, as if bringing news. When evening crept in again, the mood shifted. The conversations grew quieter, movements slower. Hope wasn't gone, but it was shrinking, tightening like a knot in everyone's chest. Searchlights were set up again, cutting white stripes through the darkening trees. The generator hummed, insects buzzed, and distant radios filled the woods with short, clipped messages. That's when I heard it. A sharp metallic ping from near the house. Different from last night's tapping, but close enough that my heart jumped. I excused myself from the group and walked toward the backyard. Our porch light flickered in the growing dusk. For a moment, I thought I saw something move near the fence line. Something low to the ground, padding silently between the blackberry bushes. I squinted, holding my breath, but whatever it was vanished before I could make sense of it. Back inside, I tried to shake off the feeling that something was watching the house. Amanda noticed how distracted I was and asked if I was okay. I told her I was just tired. The lie came too easily. Shortly after, there was a knock at the door. Naomi stood there, cheeks flushed from walking. She whispered that she had seen a large cat near the tree line earlier that day. A wild one, not a stray. Maybe a bobcat. Amanda stiffened. The idea of a predator so close to our home while Peyton was missing made her face pale. She asked Naomi if it could have hurt our daughter. Naomi hesitated just long enough to let fear pour in before saying bobcats usually avoid people, especially children. But fear doesn't care about statistics. Later that night, after the volunteers paused the search again, the yard went quiet except for the soft hum of the patrol car parked down the street. Amanda forced herself to eat something in the kitchen while I sat in the living room, staring through the window into the dark. For a long time, nothing happened. Just the wind brushing through the pines and the occasional distant radio call. Then tap. This time clearer, sharper than the night before. I stood slowly, pulse thudding in my ears. Another tap followed, more deliberate. I stepped closer to the window. My reflection faintly overlapped with the darkness outside, but behind it, two small, steady reflections hovered near the porch. Eyes again. They were positioned differently this time, slightly higher, and when they blinked, the shape of a face became clearer. Short muzzle, rounded cheeks, broad ears. A bobcat. Amanda walked into the room at the exact moment the animal lifted a paw and touched the window pane again. She gasped, stepping backward, nearly dropping the bowl she was holding. I whispered for her to stay still. The bobcat didn't snarl or scratch. It just watched us, calm, focused, like it was waiting for something. Then it turned its head sharply toward the woods. For several seconds it didn't move, just stared into the darkness, ears twitching. Then it looked back at us, tapped the window one more time, and disappeared into the night. Amanda grabbed my arm and demanded we call animal control. She said the bobcat lingering here meant something was wrong in the woods, maybe something that also involved Peyton. I didn't disagree, but the thought that struck me harder than fear was this. The animal hadn't acted aggressive at all. If anything, it looked purposeful. I didn't say that out loud. Instead, I stood at the window long after Amanda went to bed, watching, waiting, replaying every move the bobcat made. When it didn't return, I finally sat down. But sleep didn't come, because I knew, whether I wanted to admit it or not, that the bobcat had come back for a reason. The next morning the house felt heavier than the day before, as if every wall had absorbed the fear we tried not to voice. Amanda barely slept, and when she did speak, her voice was flat, thinned out by exhaustion. I wanted to tell her about the way the bobcat stared toward the woods before leaving, but the words wouldn't come out right in my head. I didn't want to sound like I was grasping at shadows. Animal control stopped by shortly after sunrise. A young officer named Randall listened while Amanda described the bobcat's behavior, how it tapped the window, how it didn't leave even when she came into the room. He nodded politely, but didn't treat it as unusual. Bobcats sometimes wandered close to houses, especially when searching for easy food. When Amanda asked if it could be dangerous to children, he hesitated in the same way Naomi had the day before. Then he said they'd place a camera on one of the fence posts and leave a trap nearby just in case. Amanda agreed immediately. I didn't. It wasn't acting aggressive, I said. It didn't hiss or scratch or... Randall cut me off with a practiced smile. Sir, wild animals don't have to act aggressive to be unpredictable. Better to keep distance. I bit back the urge to argue. I knew how it would sound. By mid-morning, the volunteers returned. But this time the energy was different. People were still determined, still hopeful, but their eyes carried a new kind of worry. They formed smaller teams and discussed focusing on deeper parts of the woods, places where someone might shelter if they were scared or hurt. While the others prepared, I walked the perimeter of our yard with Naomi. She pointed out tracks in the soft dirt, small, clean impressions with a distinct shape. That's your bobcat, she said softly. The prints ended near the blackberry bushes, then angled back toward the woods. Nothing about them looked frantic or chaotic. The animal had moved with intention. Peyton ever feed animals out here? Naomi asked. Not that I know of, but the doubt in my voice was obvious. She gave me a sympathetic look. Kids do things we don't see. Her words stayed with me for hours. Just after lunch, police shifted their search focus farther north. I followed a group toward a narrow creek that cut through the forest floor. The mud there was thick, pulling at our boots as we walked. Every branch and broken leaf felt like it could be a sign. Every silence felt like a warning. But we found nothing. Late afternoon clouds rolled in, dimming what little light filtered through the trees. I watched Amanda from a distance as she spoke with Blake. Her shoulders shook once, barely noticeable, but enough to make me feel the ground tilt under me. When I returned home to grab more water bottles for volunteers, I saw something strange near the back fence. The bobcat trap Randall had set sat untouched, but the meat inside was gone. Not torn apart, not dragged away, just gone. The door hadn't triggered. The mechanism was still locked in place. Something had reached in without setting it off. I crouched, examining the ground. Fresh prints circled the trap, the same small, rounded ones Naomi pointed out earlier. As I leaned closer, a faint metallic scent reached me, the smell of the trap itself, mixed with something else. Food, or maybe something a child might carry in their pocket. Before I could think it through, a voice called my name. Travis, one of the more experienced volunteers, jogged over. You all right? He asked. I straightened quickly. Yeah, just checking something. His eyes drifted to the trap. These things almost never work on bobcats. Too smart for them. He said it casually, but the words struck deeper than he meant. By evening, the search teams returned once more to the street, gathering equipment, comparing notes. Blake planned to shift the search farther south in the morning. Amanda asked if that meant they thought Peyton could have walked that far. Blake didn't answer directly. As dusk crawled in, volunteer numbers thinned. Naomi stayed with Amanda inside while I walked the yard again, unable to sit still. The trees loomed darker than usual, bending slightly in the cool wind. The motion camera on the fence blinked red once, then stopped. I stared at it, unsure if it had captured anything. Then I heard leaves rustle to my right. The bobcat stepped out from behind the bushes. It moved silently, almost floating across the yard. Its coat blended perfectly with the fading light, making its shape appear and disappear with each step. I stopped breathing without meaning to. It didn't come toward me. Instead, it walked straight to the window where it had tapped the night before. It looked at the glass, then at me, then toward the woods. Something about its posture made the hairs on my arms rise. It wasn't scared. It wasn't hunting. It was waiting. The bobcat tapped the glass once. Then it glanced sharply toward the tree lean, the same direction as the fading searchlights, its ears twitching as though hearing something too faint for me to catch. Naomi stepped onto the porch just then and inhaled sharply. The bobcat flicked its tail once and slipped away, disappearing into the shadows between the trees. I walked back toward the house in a daze. Amanda met me at the door. Did it come back again? She asked, her voice trembling. I nodded. What does it want? I didn't have an answer. But deep down, a thought I didn't want to admit took root. Maybe the bobcat wasn't here because of us. Maybe it was here because of her. I didn't sleep at all that night. Every time I closed my eyes, I saw the bobcat pressed against the window, its gaze pulling me toward the woods. By sunrise, my nerves felt raw, as if someone had scraped them open. Amanda insisted we join the volunteers again, afraid that missing even one search block could cost us precious time. I agreed, but my mind wasn't on the official grids anymore. It kept drifting to the same thought. The bobcat wasn't moving randomly. It had a pattern. The morning briefing was quieter than usual. Blake reviewed the plan, assigning teams to new areas deeper into the southern ridge. He looked exhausted, his voice rough, but he never let his posture slip. I realized then that he cared more than he wanted us to see. During the briefing, I noticed mud on Amanda's jeans from the day before. She hadn't changed clothes. Her hair was tied back harshly, and her eyes looked bruised from crying. Everything about her screamed desperation, but she refused to break. While we waited for supplies, Naomi approached me with something folded in her hand. "I thought you should see this," she said. It was a printed photo from Peyton's tablet, a picture I hadn't noticed before. Peyton had taken it behind the house near the tree line. In the frame, the bobcat stood several feet away, nose pointed at something on the ground. Peyton had drawn a little heart in the corner. "She wasn't afraid of it," Naomi whispered. My chest tightened. Where she didn't understand she should be. Kids and animals, sometimes they make their own rules. Before I could answer, someone called Naomi to help unload equipment from a truck. She left the photo in my hand, and for the first time since Peyton disappeared, I felt something new, an anchor point. Proof she had interacted with the bobcat days before. As I slipped the photo into my pocket, the wind shifted, carrying the smell of the woods. Pine, damp soil, something metallic. By midday, we moved with a search group along a narrow trail that twisted between boulders and fallen trees. The forest was darker here, thicker. Travis guided us through a ravine, pointing out zones where rainwater pooled and left footprints difficult to track. We found faint impressions, but none small enough to be Peyton's. At one point, Amanda called for me. She stood near a rotting stump with something clutched in her hand. A hair tie, pale yellow, worn. Peyton had dozens of them, but Amanda swore this one was hers. Blake examined it, but didn't say much. Evidence meant little without location context. Still, Amanda pressed it to her chest as though it were a lifeline. We continued searching until late afternoon, but the forest seemed intent on swallowing every trace we hoped to find. When we returned home for a brief rest, the sky had turned a deep orange, the kind that usually signals a storm. I went straight to the backyard, scanning every inch of the ground near the fence. And that's when I saw it, caught on a blackberry thorn. A strip of pink fabric. Not large, not torn violently, just enough to catch the eye. My hand shook as I pulled it free. The moment I felt the texture, I knew. It was from Peyton's jacket. Amanda gasped behind me, nearly collapsing as she reached for it. Her fingers trembled against mine. Blake arrived minutes later after I called him. He studied the fabric, then crouched near the bush. "There are tracks here," he murmured. "Small animal. Likely your bobcat again." Amanda wrapped her arms around herself. "So it dragged her here?" "No," Blake said firmly. "These prints aren't violent or erratic. If a bobcat attacked, you'd see signs, blood, drag marks, disrupted soil. There's none of that." His voice steadied her, but it didn't steady me, because I realized something else. The prints didn't lead away from the yard. They led toward it. That night, the storm rolled in. Thunder cracked overhead, rattling the windows. Rain fell in sheets, turning the yard into a maze of running water. Naomi stayed with Amanda while I paced the living room, unable to sit still. Every shadow felt alive. Every branch hitting the siding made me jump. The trap outside rattled once, twice. Wind or something testing it, I couldn't tell. Then, through the storm's roar, I heard it. Tap. I froze. Another tap, sharper this time, almost urgent. I moved slowly toward the window, heart hammering. Lightning flashed outside, carving a white outline of the yard. The bobcat stood there, soaked, tail low, eyes fixed on me through the glass. It didn't blink as rain poured down its face. It tapped the window again, hard enough that Amanda rushed into the room at the sound. Before either of us could react, the bobcat turned and walked along the fence line, then paused, looking back at us. Its body angled toward the woods, muscles tense, as if waiting. Amanda grabbed my arm. "Don't," she warned. "Please don't follow it." I swallowed hard. "It keeps coming back. Over and over." It wants something. She shook her head violently. It's an animal, Russell. That's all. It doesn't know anything. Thunder boomed again. Rain pounded the roof. The bobcat took a few steps toward the trees and looked back one last time. I couldn't explain why, but the message felt unmistakable. It wasn't running from the storm. It wanted me to follow. I stood rooted to the floor, torn between fear, hope, and the crushing possibility that I was chasing something that wasn't real. The bobcat slipped into the darkness. I didn't follow. Not yet. The storm that hit during the night left the whole street washed out and raw. Fallen branches littered the sidewalks, and the air still held the sharp smell of wet bark. I barely noticed any of it. I hadn't slept, not more than a handful of minutes at a time. Every time thunder shook the windows, I imagined the bobcat out there, pacing the yard, waiting for me to understand something I couldn't quite grasp. By sunrise, volunteers began gathering again. Their voices were quieter than the days before, their movements slower. Blake arrived with a stack of updated maps and a stiffness in his posture I hadn't seen before. He didn't need to say it out loud. Time was becoming our enemy. Amanda stood beside him, arms folded tightly, as he reviewed the new plan. They were shrinking some search zones, reallocating others. She frowned as she studied the map. "You're reducing the coverage here," she said. Her finger hovered over a patch of forest not far from our backyard. "Why?" Blake exhaled slowly. "Because we've swept it 3 times already. We need to extend south." "You're giving up on this area," she snapped. "No," he said firmly. "We're adjusting strategy. We're not giving up." But Amanda's face remained hard, and I didn't blame her. The idea of them moving farther away felt like abandoning the one place where any sign of Peyton had actually been found. When Blake stepped away, Amanda turned to me, her eyes filled with something sharp. "We can't let them stop searching here." I nodded, but my thoughts drifted elsewhere, to the strip of pink fabric, the bobcat's paw prints, the way it kept returning to the exact same place. I wanted to tell her the truth. I didn't think the search team would find what they were looking for, not where they were looking. But saying that out loud would have sounded delusional. Mid-morning, the house filled with volunteers again. Naomi forced Amanda to drink water and eat something. Travis came by the porch to check on me. "You look like you're about to collapse," he said. "Just tired," I muttered. He studied me for a moment. "You keep walking the yard. Something bothering you?" I hesitated, then shook my head. Telling him the truth, that I was starting to believe a wild animal knew more than we did, felt impossible. When the volunteers left for the southern ridge, Amanda joined them. I stayed behind to speak with Blake privately. "Yesterday," I said, keeping my voice low, "I found Peyton's jacket fabric by the fence. And the bobcat was there again last night." He rubbed the bridge of his nose. "I know. You told me. But Russell, wild animals roam. They circle homes for food. That's not evidence." It wasn't random. It kept looking toward the woods. "It's a predator," he said calmly. "Predators scan territory. That's what they do." He wasn't dismissive, he was logical. Too logical. And logic had stopped being useful days ago. I didn't push further. Blake was stretched thin. He wasn't going to follow a hunch based on a bobcat's behavior. By early afternoon, clouds gathered again, and the temperature dropped. I walked to the backyard out of habit, scanning the fence line, feeling the ground under my shoes. The mud was fresh, slick, but something caught my eye near the blackberry bushes. Another track. Fresh. Round. Small. My heart pounded. The prints weren't heading away from the yard. They were angled toward the woods, the same direction the bobcat had tried to lead me 2 nights in a row. I crouched beside the print, running my thumb along the edge. Rain hadn't blurred it yet. It couldn't have been more than an hour old. A shout rose from the street. Amanda's voice. I rushed around the house. She was pointing to the patrol car where Blake stood, arms crossed. "They're scaling back the teams tomorrow," she said, shaking. "He just told me. Fewer people. Shorter shifts." My stomach dropped. Scaling back meant losing momentum. Losing eyes. Losing hope. She grabbed my jacket. "We can't let them stop here. We can't." I held her hands, but my focus drifted to the woods behind us, dark and still after the storm. That's when the patrol officer jogged over with something in his hand. "A neighbor found this near the drainage ditch," he said. He held out a small object wrapped in a clear evidence bag. A silver charm. Peyton's. Amanda gasped and pressed a hand to her mouth. I felt my knees weaken. Blake took the bag, studying it carefully. "It's recent," he said. "Wasn't here during the first sweep." Then we need to search there again, Amanda insisted. We will, Blake said, but his voice had the tone of someone who couldn't promise much more. They left to check the ditch, and the volunteers followed. I stood alone for a moment, my thoughts spinning. That charm. Peyton always kept it clipped to her belt loop. If it fell, it meant she had been moving. Alive. But then another realization struck me, cold and sharp. The drainage ditch was nowhere near the southern ridge. It was in the same general direction the Bobcat had been signaling. All week we had searched east, south, north, but never west. I walked back to the yard as the light faded, following the line of fresh prints until the fence blocked my path. My hands gripped the cold wood. I knew something I couldn't ignore anymore. As the last bit of sun dipped behind the ridge, a shape appeared at the edge of the trees. The Bobcat. It didn't approach this time. It just sat, still as stone, watching me. The moment stretched. My breath fogged in the cold air. My pulse hammered in my throat. For the first time, I stepped toward it. The Bobcat stood, turned, and slipped silently between the trees. It wasn't running. It was leading. And this time, I followed. The moment I stepped past the fence line, the air felt different, colder, sharper, as if the forest had been holding its breath and finally exhaled. The Bobcat moved ahead of me with effortless grace, barely disturbing the wet leaves beneath its paws. I kept a distance, my flashlight shaking in my hand, but the beam stayed trained on its silhouette. Branches dripped from the earlier storm. The mud pulled at my shoes with every step. The Bobcat paused once, glancing back to be sure I was still behind it, then continued weaving between trees. Its pace wasn't rushed. It wasn't scared. It was controlled, measured, almost guiding. For the first few minutes, I couldn't hear anything but my own heartbeat. But as we moved deeper into the woods, the forest sounds returned, slowly at first. A rustle to the left, water dripping rhythmically from a bent cedar, wind pushing through the high branches. I kept track of landmarks out of instinct. A half-rotten stump, a fallen log split lightning clean down the center, two boulders leaning together like a broken doorway. The Bobcat passed them all without hesitation. The deeper we went, the more the terrain changed. The ground dipped unevenly, the soil softened beneath layers of wet needles. A faint scent of moss and cold stone rose as we approached a shallow ravine. A branch snapped behind me. I spun, breath caught in my throat. Russell, a voice hissed. Travis emerged from the darkness, flashlight pointed down to avoid blinding me. His jacket was soaked, his expression a mix of confusion and alarm. "What the hell are you doing out here alone?" he whispered harshly. I opened my mouth, but how could I explain? "I'm following something." His eyes narrowed. "Following what?" Before I could answer, the Bobcat reappeared at the edge of the ravine and tapped its paw lightly against a rock, as if marking its place. Travis followed my gaze. When he saw the animal, his entire posture changed. "You're kidding me," he muttered. "That thing's been hanging around your house." "Yes," I said, "and I think it's trying to lead us somewhere." He stared at me like he wanted to argue, but then the Bobcat moved again. Quick, certain steps along a narrow path that descended deeper into the ravine. "I'm going," I said firmly. Travis cursed under his breath. "Fine, but I'm not letting you be out here alone." We followed. The ravine walls grew steeper the farther we descended. Thick roots jutted out like ribs. Water trickled along one side, flowing toward a darker hollow ahead. The Bobcat stopped at the entrance of the hollow, a collapsed structure half swallowed by earth. Wooden beams sagged inward, and a smell of damp rot hung in the air. The animal stood absolutely still. I whispered, "This wasn't on the search map." Travis lifted his light. "Looks like an old storm shelter or storage shed. We didn't have this marked." My pulse hammered as I stepped closer. Just inside the collapsed doorway lay a scattering of debris, broken boards, leaves, a plastic bottle. But farther in, the ground dipped sharply, forming a narrow opening beneath the fallen structure. A hole. "Travis," I whispered, "shine your light there." He knelt, angling his flashlight into the darkness. At first, all we saw was broken timber and dirt. Then something shifted. A sound. A small, weak sound. A whimper. My entire body locked. Again, I choked. "Shine it again, there." Travis leaned forward, eyes wide. "Someone's in there." My knees nearly gave out. I dropped to the ground, ignoring the cold mud soaking into my jeans, and pressed my face closer to the opening. "Peyton." I shouted, voice cracking. Peyton, it's Daddy. Can you hear me? For a moment, I heard nothing but the pattering of water dripping from the roof. Then, a soft, muffled reply. Daddy? The world spun. Every breath lodged in my chest. Travis grabbed my arm. We need help. You won't get her out alone. The whole structure could collapse. He was right. Logic told me that. But hearing my daughter's voice just feet away from us made every rational thought evaporate. We have to get her now, I said. She's hurt. She's cold. We're getting her, he said firmly. But safely. He ran up the ravine, calling into his radio for immediate backup. I stayed by the opening, reaching my hand in as far as I could. Peyton, sweetheart, talk to me. Keep talking so I know you're awake. A weak cry drifted up from the darkness. The Bobcat still stood near the entrance, watching us. Not moving, not leaving. Its tail flicked once, as if confirming what we already knew. She was here. Within minutes, flashlights approached from every direction. Blake slid down the ravine wall, breathless. Amanda's scream echoed above us. I hadn't seen her arrive, but her voice tore through the night. Is she alive? She cried. She's alive, I said, tears burning down my cheeks. She's alive, Amanda. Emergency responders moved fast. Travis directed them to reinforce the structure with boards while Blake coordinated radio calls. Naomi appeared at the top of the ravine, one hand over her mouth, sobbing. Peyton, stay awake. I shouted again. Her small voice answered, stronger this time. I'm here. Daddy. It shattered me. The rescuers worked with steady precision, sliding boards, lifting beams, clearing debris until one of them crawled into the opening with a rescue blanket. I've got her, he shouted. Everything inside me broke open. Minutes later, he emerged cradling Peyton in his arms, mud-soaked, shaking, scraped, but alive. Alive. Amanda screamed and fell to her knees as they laid Peyton onto a stretcher. I held her hand, whispering her name over and over, afraid to stop saying it. As they carried her up the ravine, I turned back toward the hollow. The Bobcat was still there, watching. Rain began to fall again, soft, cold droplets. The Bobcat blinked once, stepped backward into the shadows, and vanished. It didn't wait for thanks. It just left. And I finally understood. It hadn't been leading me. It had been bringing me back to her. The ride to the hospital was a blur of sirens, cold air, and the unsteady rhythm of Peyton's breathing. Amanda sat in the ambulance holding our daughter's hand as if afraid it would slip away again. I followed in a patrol car behind them, watching the red lights slice through the darkness. Every few seconds I caught a glimpse of Amanda through the rear window, hunched over, whispering to Peyton. I don't think she stopped for a single breath. At the emergency entrance, doctors rushed Peyton inside. Mud streaked her cheeks, and her lips were pale, but she was awake. Dazed, shaking, but awake. When they wheeled her toward the trauma room, Amanda looked back at me with the kind of expression that breaks a man open from the inside. Relief crashing into fear, fear crashing into hope. Blake arrived moments later, soaked, exhausted, but steady. He placed a firm hand on my shoulder. You found her, he said quietly. No, I murmured. We followed something that did. He didn't understand. Maybe he thought I was in shock, but he didn't press. The next hours crawled. Nurses brought updates, hypothermia, dehydration, cuts, bruises, nothing life-threatening. Peyton had been trapped under the collapsed floor for at least a day, maybe longer. She was conscious but disoriented, repeating fragments of what happened. She fell through rotten boards, a doctor explained. She tried to climb back up, but the soil kept crumbling. She did everything right. She conserved energy. She called out when she heard noises. Noises. The Bobcat. Amanda sat beside Peyton's bed once we were allowed in. She held our daughter's hand with both of hers, brushing her hair back gently. I'm right here, sweetheart, Amanda whispered. We're right here. I stood on the other side, afraid to blink. Peyton's eyes, half open, searched the room until they found me. Her voice was barely a breath. Daddy, the cat came back. Amanda stiffened. I leaned closer. What cat, sweetheart? The spotted one from the trees. Her eyelids fluttered. I heard it. It stayed close. I thought it was waiting for me. Amanda looked at me, fear and disbelief colliding in her face. I didn't know how to make sense of it either, but hearing it from her broke something loose inside me. Later, when Peyton slept, Amanda stepped into the hallway. I followed. What if it really was helping her? She whispered. It didn't act like a predator, I said. Not once. But animals don't do that. They don't lead people. They don't tap on windows. She struggled with the idea, shaking her head, but her eyes weren't rejecting it anymore. They were searching for a way to accept it. That night, after Amanda fell asleep in a chair beside Peyton, I stepped outside the hospital for air. The parking lot was empty except for a few patrol cars. Rain misted down, soft and cold. Travis approached from across the lot, hands in his pockets. You did good, he said. I shook my head. I didn't do anything. You followed your instincts, he replied. Most people wouldn't. Most would have waited for someone else to give them permission. I didn't know how to respond to that. My instincts hadn't felt like bravery. They'd felt like desperation. He paused, then added, I've lived around here my whole life. Seen bobcats plenty. Never seen one do what that one did tonight. Neither had I. Over the next 2 days, Peyton improved quickly. The nurses adored her. She kept apologizing for getting everyone worried, which made Amanda cry every time. Blake visited twice, checking on her, bringing a small stuffed owl from the station's community fund. But he also had questions. Your daughter mentioned hearing an animal near the opening, he said. Do you think it was the same bobcat? Yes, I answered without hesitation. He nodded slowly, processing. I've seen stranger things in the woods, he admitted softly. Nature doesn't always follow our rules. Amanda squeezed my hand under the table. The night before Peyton was discharged, I returned home alone to make the house ready. Toys still lay scattered in the living room. The window where the bobcat had tapped was smudged with dried rain. The trap Randall set sat empty, door untouched. I walked into the yard with a flashlight, scanning the fence line. No tracks today. No rustling bushes. No reflected eyes. I hadn't expected to see it again. But a part of me, some quiet, childlike part, still hoped. I approached the blackberry bushes where the pink fabric had been caught days earlier. The stems swayed gently in the breeze. Then, near the base of the fence, something caught the light. A print. Fresh. Small. A bobcat's track, pressed cleanly into the soft earth. My breath stalled. I knelt down, touching the edge of the print with my fingertips. The forest beyond the fence was silent. Waiting. I didn't call out. I didn't move. I just stayed there in the quiet, letting the moment settle. The bobcat didn't appear, but it didn't need to. It had already done everything that mattered. When I closed the gate and headed back to the house, the weight I'd been carrying for days felt lighter. Not gone, not forgotten, but changed. The woods no longer looked like a threat. They looked like a place that had given my daughter back. And somewhere out there, a wild animal had returned to its own life, leaving ours forever altered. Not with magic, not with meaning we invented, just with instinct. And somehow, that made it even more extraordinary. Don't forget to subscribe so you won't miss new stories. And now just click the playlist or the next video on your screen.